Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive collision course. We're going to synthesize how global geopolitics, artificial intelligence, and our physical world are crashing into one another right now in August 2026. If you've been following the news, you know things are moving fast, but understanding exactly how all these moving pieces fit together is absolutely crucial. All right, let's kick things off with a number that is frankly hard to wrap your head around. For the first time in history, the United States national debt has just crossed the $40 trillion mark. Federal borrowing concerns are stubbornly persisting, and the Treasury has actually had to expand its bond buyback activities just to keep liquidity flowing. It's a massive amount of financial pressure, and it serves as the backdrop for literally everything else we're about to discuss. So that sets the stage for the big question we're tackling today. How in the world are mounting global pressures, like international conflicts and supply chain bottlenecks, and the absolutely insatiable AI infrastructure boom, competing for the exact same already strained resources? To make sense of all this chaos, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, the global energy crunch. Second, AI's massive infrastructure boom. Third, climate and public health. Fourth, the shifting 2026 workforce. And finally, we'll look at markets and the midterms. Part 1. The global energy crunch. Geopolitics and the Strait of Hormuz. Right away, things are getting complicated in the Middle East. The White House is prepping additional economic sanctions to isolate Iran and choke off its remaining oil exports. But here's why these secondary sanctions are so incredibly tricky. China is currently buying up a whopping 80% of Iran's exported oil. This means any new American sanctions don't just stay in the Middle East, they ripple directly into the economic relationship with one of the world's biggest superpowers. And because broader commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is now severely restricted, neighboring countries are scrambling. Take Iraq, for example. They usually produce around 4 million barrels a day, but right now they are being forced to actively hunt down alternative overland oil export routes through Turkey, Syria, and Jordan just to bypass the blockade. So why does this matter to you and me? Well, this prolonged disruption has pushed Brent crude prices all the way up to $94.39 a barrel. That is a serious hike, and it's rapidly driving up operating expenses for airlines, manufacturers, transportation companies, and ultimately everyday households who are just trying to fill up their gas tanks. Naturally, all of this translates into massive political heat right here at home. With the midterm elections right around the corner, President Trump is facing an electorate that is deeply sensitive to those rising fuel prices and persistent inflation, all while international negotiations in places like Iran, Gaza, and Ukraine remain completely stalled. Moving right along to part 2, AI's massive infrastructure boom. Trillions spent and communities push back. We're witnessing a really fascinating paradox right now. On one side, you have this incredible tech boom. Chipmakers like Etched are hitting $21 billion valuations, and countries like Brazil are dropping $444 million into supercomputing. But on the exact opposite side, there's a fierce backlash. Local communities are fighting tooth and nail against new data centers over electricity and water use, while 29 different states are actively caught up in litigation against Meta regarding youth safety policies. To fuel that kind of unprecedented growth, American tech companies have actually issued a jaw-dropping $220 billion in debt, and that is just this year alone. They're doing this just to finance their massive AI infrastructure expansions. It's a total gold rush, and the sheer volume of capital being moved around is staggering. But here's the catch. Despite those mountains of corporate cash, there's a stark disconnect with the public. A recent Pew Research survey shows that 40% of American adults actually expect AI to produce more harm than benefit over the next 2 decades. There is a very real tension brewing between corporate ambition and everyday public trust. That brings us to part 3, climate and public health, where extreme heat meets the power grid. This is where the energy crunch and the tech boom literally collide in the physical world. Right now, dangerous heat indices of 100 to 110 degrees are baking states across the south-central U.S., like Texas and Louisiana. Grid operators are bracing for immense cooling demands. But remember those AI data centers we just talked about? Well, they're simultaneously asking those exact same regional grids to support their accelerating electricity demands, putting unprecedented strain on our natural gas and nuclear power resources. And as if our global resources weren't strained enough, severe natural disasters are testing the absolute limits of emergency response. Just look at the devastating magnitude 7.7 earthquake in eastern Indonesia. It left at least 68 people dead, and nearly 1,000 aftershocks are severely complicating aid deliveries. It really highlights the fragility of our physical infrastructure. It's not all bad news, though. That massive AI computing boom is actually driving some unbelievable medical breakthroughs. Moderna and Merck are reporting super encouraging results using a personalized mRNA cancer vaccine for melanoma. On top of that, the federal government is pouring $5 billion into AI-assisted research to accelerate discoveries in treating chronic illnesses. Let's look at part 4, the shifting 2026 workforce. Who is hiring and who is firing? So what does all of this mean for your daily life? Well, an immense transition is actively rewiring the job market. Already this year, automation has absorbed roughly 120,000 routine tech and administrative jobs. But look at who is hiring. There is a massive boom for the physical trades needed to actually build these data centers and run the grids. Electricians, engineers, grid operators, and specialized cooling professionals are in completely unprecedented demand. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The completely digital AI future turns out to rely entirely on analog plumbers and electricians. The biggest takeaway for your career right now boils down to 2 words: human accountability. As companies roll out all these automated systems, they're desperately seeking real people who can verify the outputs for errors, bias, and completely unsupported claims. Technical knowledge is great, but human communication and solid business judgment, those are becoming the true premium skills of 2026. And finally, part 5, markets and the midterms, the financial fallout. Unsurprisingly, the political landscape is reacting hard to all of this. We are seeing tech and crypto companies directing absolute record amounts of money into the 2026 midterms. They're trying to influence voters who are deeply concerned about inflation, high energy prices, and the runaway pace of AI. In this environment, President Trump's foreign policy record is becoming a highly scrutinized central campaign issue as control of Congress hangs in the balance. Because of all these intersecting pressures, global markets are basically holding their collective breath. Investors are anxiously waiting for policy signals. Everyone's eyes are on Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to see how he addresses the $40 trillion debt and the Iranian sanctions. At the exact same time, they're looking to Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh for any hints of relief on inflation and interest rates. So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. In a world that is increasingly driven by automated decisions and heavily constrained by our physical resources, maybe the most valuable asset we have left isn't a microchip or a barrel of oil. Perhaps it's simply human judgment. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.